So we're here in the Tower of ZOT. If you have just been auto-fed this dungeon, I am saying it aloud in case you're playing in the background and you don't want to glance over and see anything from the new expansion, because this will show the dungeon. This could be spoiler territory. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. Don't look closely at the screen. Come back if you want to wait. I ran this with Brian as our summoner here, Zumi as our Reaper, and Curious Joy as our Sage. And I am going to jump in and talk about the new dungeon, what I liked. This was our first run of it. We had not been on the server very long. Our keybinds are all off. I think some of us had to drag abilities onto the bar throughout the dungeon. We're going to run this. I don't know how this works with the Trust because we have some NPCs with us. What the first thing I noticed is, as a warrior, I was interested in the warrior changes. So you're going to see me gap close here. You're going to see me immediately hop into that AoE, and I'm going to pull that Tempest up. I'm going to pull that Storm's Eye up and immediately get going. I'm going to pop in a release for my charges, start dropping Decimate. I'm just getting a feel for it. I'm not using like my Upheaval or Orogeny or any of that, so I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just getting a feel. I've glanced at the changes at this point. And the pulls feel like as soon as I know that my Sage has a handle on it, we're going to immediately start double pulling and seeing what goes on from here. This is a pretty typical dungeon in that we will see that I can double pull, and then I can pull all the way up into, and it will stop me. And there's no bridge here. There's nowhere else to go. So just stop at that second pull. But it feels like I can pull just hard enough. And once that bridge comes up, we can go, and I'm going to just straight up double pull, and we're going to see if she can handle this one as well. And I'm not using my mitigation well. She's been playing Sage for like all of 10 minutes, and so I do think we wipe here. I died. Oh, nope, she got me back up. Summoner died. Okay, first boss. These are the sisters. So we knew that these were told to us in the live letter, so that's not spoilery in my opinion, because they already told us that the Magus sisters were going to be here. They chose to show us the 81 dungeon, as opposed to in Shadowbringers, they showed us the 73 dungeon, because 71 would have been too spoilery. So they gave this to us. The first thing you note is there is a lot of movement in this fight. A lot of movement, which really helps line up with the amount of movement that we are... Gosh, use your gauge, dude. The amount of movement that we are seeing jobs get. Lots of jobs got movement, and so look at all of this. It's just AoE after AoE. They're fast, and they are very non-forgiving. They hit hard. We are synced down, so we are in whatever level gear. I think we were in 560, level 90s, synced down to 82 here, the max level for this dungeon. Now that we've seen it once, I think people are going to adjust and start getting this a little more right. Now she's going to be putting down these little orbs, and she's going to cast the same abilities, but taunts to them. So I'm going to just get smacked by that. Sure, Vuln stacks all around. And then there's a tank buster in here. This is the first boss to the first dungeon in Endwalker. So I was really excited to see just how hard this punched. It doesn't mean dungeons will be hard, but they always say challenging new dungeons, and they really haven't been. In Shadowbringers, I think the dungeons were the best narrative addition to the game as a set of dungeons of any expansion so far. I think narratively they were incredible. Thematically, they were stunning. Now we've got 2 orbs. We're going to push these different things. Hers goes off. The next one goes off. You got to be there. You got to read these mechanics or you just get smacked. You got to be at the next one, and you'll see that, I mean, we're just getting nailed here. Look at all these vulns. And so from here, you see that, like, this is meant to be something that expands on the narrative, yes, but it's also something that we do over and over in roulettes. And I think a lot of the Shadowbringers dungeons are going to be something that, like, I'm not hungry to run them again the same way I actually enjoy a lot of the ARR dungeons, even RM Vale. There I go down. And so I think that in general, I'm actually really, really happy. Like, I have no idea what my keybinds are doing here. As I stare at these keybinds, and I have played 14 for several days since I went on this, I'm like, what are these? Did you just drag things on bars and hope to God it would make sense? Ridiculous. So, run, bunny boy. So I think that what I'm excited about this is there's a lot of mechanics. And mechanics are what make a dungeon really fun when it comes up for the first time in a year or 2 years. What I said about the trust system when we saw it at the Shadowbringers Media Tour was this is something that I'm excited about, not for the duration of Shadowbringers, but the day that whatever comes after Shadowbringers goes live. I think the trust system in Shadowbringers is the most valuable it's ever been on November 19th. When somebody gets to Shadowbringers for the first time, and none of us want to run Shadowbringers content because we are in the middle still progressing through Endwalker. That's what trusts are for, in my opinion, especially if that person's on a DPS job. And so I think that when I look at dungeons, it's a question of how does it age. It's why I don't like big, long, narrative-based intermissions, is because what happens when I'm just in here in a roulette, something like E12 normal, where there's this massive intermission into the fight, where there's just downtime for downtime's sake. So I misread that and got close to that one, so now I'm going to have to get across this. No way, dude. No way. Oh my gosh, I made it. All right, look, no vuln stacks on the tank. I mean, there's weakness, but what are you going to do? So you see this boss has a ton of movement. There's the, that's the Reaper, kind of, you can collapse back to that with regress. So we're seeing all this stuff going around. And so that's the first boss. So we're going to kind of blast through the end of that. It's all rinse, repeat at this point. Nothing crazy. They're not going to show us the loot anyway. Everything's just going to drop potions. It's going to be more pulls. I'm pulling hard to push the healer. I know that she's cleared E12S as a healer, so I'm going to pull her hard through like a little mini boss here and see if we can go down. And we do actually wipe. So sorry, Joy. I was trying to push the pace just to see what it would do. So she did not ask me to do that. I am a bad tank and just went nuts. She was very, very, very good, spirited about the fact that I absolutely wiped us there by being a bad tank and overpulling. And expecting a healer that knew Sage, that couldn't possibly know Sage to adjust. So, keep pulling hard, and we get to the next sister. So, from here, we're going to see more movement, but not as much as the first one. So she's going to do cast one way, cast the other. She's targeting these at people. So don't all stack up. You'll just make that worse. She's targeting these at people. So you see they both had to move because they were stacked in the same line. So you do want to kind of be separated there. Now comes these orbs. And this is really interesting. So what's going to happen, and we're not going to know this the first time. Like I said, we've been on the server like less than an hour. So like we knew nothing about anything. What's going to happen is those are all going to blow up. You need to be where they are, where they aren't, so that those don't hit you, because otherwise you can't move, and you have to get hit by her there. So me and Joy both get hit, and then we both take a vuln, because we literally could not move. There was nothing we could do about that. So you've got to read the room. And so I appreciate stats like that. I think vuln stacks and the delibrum stacks are something that tells you, hey, we don't have to kill you, just to tell you that was avoidable. Next time, maybe don't. And so I think that's something I'm excited to see carry forward into the next dungeons. It's not surprising to see it there, but I do like it. You see me mousing over tooltips, getting a feel for things, while trying to maintain some semblance of the world's worst rotation. Use your Z button. Use it. I don't think that's where it goes, but use Z. Use your infuriate. What are you doing? Okay, so you are looking for the sister here that does not do anything. The sister that just stands there. So that one over there was just standing there. That's the sister that won't explode. We're all going to get nailed, which is going to put this freeze on all of us. Doesn't hurt that bad on its own. We're all full life, but then we're all going to stand here and get smacked. And that's how she's going to jump down and wreck our faces. Love seeing tank busters. I love the tank buster animation being something that's reinforced in dungeons. Because that's what tells me to use mitigation. I don't know if I did. I'm probably not doing well. I'm literally mousing over my buttons. You can see me trying to gauge where things are. I'm moving buttons around mid-pull. What are you doing? Oh, this is my first time watching this footage back. I'm so bad. Oh, just know that when I watch tank guides and like I hadn't been tanking in a while, this is how I feel on day one. I usually just keep a lot of this commentary out of dungeon guides. And so we are moving into just a lot of movement. And I love that this is the very first dungeon of Endwalker. From here, I only expect things to get crazier. And so I'm really excited to see where that goes from here. Hopefully that means that I'm not so adverse to a level 90 roulette. The level 90 roulette, the level 80 roulette is something I haven't really done. I did expert roulettes, I did leveling roulettes. I didn't really address my 90 roulette. Okay, so we figured out the pattern there. Good. Look at us. Nobody got hit. I think we were doing call-outs. We were in a voice chat, so that helped. So we were all guessing. Figuring it out. So I think that this being the first dungeon gives me a lot of hope for what dungeons are. Keep in mind that we will not be getting a Savage or Mythic Plus or whatever you want to call it version of dungeons. That has been TLDR. The answer is no. The no has been no a lot of different ways. If we do get hard 4-man content, it will be tied to an update to the Deep Dungeon system. We are not guaranteed to get an update to the Deep Dungeon system this expansion, but they have said they're looking at a way to update the Deep Dungeon system, so maybe expect one around, if I had to guess, something closer to like a 6.3. If we get one, I'd love to see one. I think it would be really welcome. I think that challenging 4-man content has been repeatedly requested, and while it may not be a large portion of the community, it is a portion of the community where things like guides and class knowledge come from, so it does trickle down. And I think that's important, just like it's important that we add more cosmetics and we add more changes to housing and all these other things. We have a big theme park, there's lots of different kind of rides, and I think it's important that, you know, just because you don't like haunted houses, we do still need to add more haunted houses to the game. And so we need to metaphorically add more of these types of things. So now you see that I wanted to mark a target there. So I'm dragging it to, that is actually Shift A on my natural keyboard. So way to go there. I can tell you like Shift X is teleport. So it's definitely not home gang. I don't know what your plan is. Shift Z is go home. So I don't know what I put there. That's my return to home. So like some of these buttons are just all over the place. I just dragged them to what I thought they were. I thought I had a screenshot of my tooltips, and I didn't. So I thought I had one on my computer, and I didn't have it lined up. So that made it a lot harder to address when the job already changed as well. So you can see my stack is still hanging out, so I didn't miss out on a Felk leave from Inner Release there. I've put out videos on all the tank changes, and I've recorded videos on all the Fizz Ranged and on Reaper. I don't know what else I'll have done as of this point. Brian has covered all of the magical casters and all the healers, including Sage. And then we've both recorded collabs. He recorded 4 collabs with Larry Czar. I recorded 4 collabs with Rin. So we've got a lot of thoughts and impressions coming out, as well as collabs with each other. But I'll note a couple of battle changes here as we go. This ability over here on me, those links, that's kind of like Dance Partner, but for Sage, that's what she's marked me with. That says that when she does damage, that's who's getting the healing from it, is me as the tank. So that'll be one more thing that kind of like asking for tank stance. You'll be asking for Cardia or Cardion or whatever it's called from the Sage to get that green buff. You're going to want that up. That's going to need to be refreshed every dungeon so that they pick that target. So it will be kind of one of those opener things, kind of like getting your fairy out or, you know, when we've had stances and stuff in the past. It's just one of those things that you have to remember to do, especially when you sink down and it like falls off, or when it's something that has to be applied to a partner, like a dance partner or something that needs to be applied. That's something that you're going to want to keep an eye on, is does that person have it, because they may have forgotten. So just kind of keep that in mind. You'll notice that I had no trouble gap closing there. Tanks across the board are going to have a 20-yard gap closer. Also, as I'm pushing these abilities, when you see abilities glow, let me see if I use a combo here. Use a combo. Do something. Press something. So right there, I press W, which is my cone, and that goes into my circle. Right there, when the W glows, one of the things that Rin noticed is that actually the timing on that is a great deal longer. I think he counted out the exact timing, so go watch Rin's coverage to get a feel for that, because that's a massive change to the battle system that was not gone over in a tooltip, not gone over in the presentation. That is just something they changed that will drastically change the way we think about content, as far as when you have to maintain combos, and how we think about rotations, how we think about skill priority, the ability to maintain a combo while taking an even larger amount of time off. As I went from A to R to G there, that MAME over into that amount of time being longer is not something that's marked. That's not a countdown as a buff or anything like that. So that getting extended is a big deal. So whatever Rin has found out over there, and I'm sure will carry off to the Balance Discord, and they'll start thinking through this. I think it is a big deal. So we're going to finish up some trash here, and we're going to move on to the final boss. The final boss is Shenanigans. Okay, I was really hoping this would maybe kind of be a trial fight, because you'll notice we didn't kill any of them yet. But actually, it looks like the Magus Sisters, you'll note, is our final encounter over here. And so you see our final encounter, and you're going to have them drop down, and wait for it. So we're going to fight this, face the full wrath, and you're going to fight all of the sisters. They're all going to be doing stuff simultaneously. This is where movement felt better than ever. So you'll see I dodged out of things, and then actually I realized I wanted to be somewhere else. So I came for the stack, and then I think I clicked on one, and then I went ahead and, a little bit of lag on their end. We're on a virtual client. And so I start moving over, and this is actually where I started to feel like, oh my gosh, this is why I have so many charges of my gap closer. So as I move around, you'll notice throughout this fight, there's an immense amount of movement, and so maintaining some level of uptime. Granted, this is all very poor level play. Please don't look at my hotbars, don't look at my rotation, don't look at anything here as something to repeat. As a matter of fact, if anything, break this down and analyze it like a plane crash. This is not good, guys. So let's go ahead and watch me do some level of at least global cooldowns are moving, and we're watching this go through, and the sisters are all here, and we're just focusing one down. So we keep focusing the same one down. They're all casting different mechanics, and the more of them that are up, the more crap we have to dodge. So now this bomb goes out, and I think this is where, is this right? Yep, gap close in. Yeah, keep using it, man. You got one more charge in the tank. So we've lost our Reaper, people going down, it's a little bit chaos. And so what's exciting about this is we have all these mechanics. And so our thought here was, let's just burn one down, right? So let's just burn one down. And you see us just dodging just crazy mechanics, absolutely insane mechanics. They're everywhere. It's just absolute chaos, and I love that this is a dungeon fight, the final dungeon fight. So many dungeons feel so plain compared to this. They're beautiful narrative, they tell a great story, they expand on it, they make us feel things, the loot is good, the sound is good, but as content that I want to repeat over and over, like, I'm pressing a lot of crap here. It's getting sideways, it's getting crazy, people are dying, and I think that makes for much more exciting gameplay. So let me go ahead and just jump over real quick, and we're going to go in as our second run, okay? So we pull a little bit harder. We do still have some wipes, but mostly because I'm pulling even harder. Because what did I learn? We wiped us before, but she's been a sage. Because now Zumi has moved over to her Black Mage, and Brian has moved to his Black Mage as well. And we're going to go into this last fight here. And this is where I want to kind of note something that I think is really fun to teach you mechanics. Is we burn down one of the sisters. So we actually pick a sister, and we burn her down. And down she goes. We don't keep them all tied. We think, you know what? Last time, we kind of focused them down, but because the movements, we said we were focusing one, but because we never marked one, we ended up kind of burning them all really close together. And so this time, we actually focused one. We called her out in voice chat. You would mark it if you were in... Now I've got Bloodfest over on Shift A, which is the mark symbol. These are also terrible keybinds and don't represent how I actually play at all, which is not perfect, but it's better than this. Super Bolite's not even bound. You just gotta click that, bro. So we've got just some chaos here, dragged onto bars with even less thought. But what's interesting here mechanically is, look, they brought that sister back up. Oh my gosh. So very, very cool, very exciting. And that is our dungeon. Overall thoughts. I think that the dungeon is something that I'm really excited about the pacing of it. I'm really excited about how fast it moves. I'm excited about how much is going on. And I don't know the story behind it. I don't need to, because what I think about with dungeons is what happens when they are roulette content. Because while the story is the first ingredient and every other ingredient in this game is affected by the story, in people who play this game for thousands and thousands of hours, percentage-wise, the actual amount of time engaging directly in story gets smaller and smaller the more you play, because we only get story so fast. We get some every patch. And so that means that it is very possible that 300, 400, 500 hours of your time have been spent engaging in and learning story in this game. Over 3,000, 4,000, 10,000 hours in this game, so it's a very small percentage. And so my question with things on dungeons, when I see something in the media tour where they're trying not to spoil anything too significant, if you think that's spoilery, at the Shadowbringers media tour, Yoshi P was asked about some things being spoilery, and he said, if you think that's spoilery, just wait. Like, he was like, if you think that's big news, no, I gave you trash. That is nothing. And so I assume that the Magic Sisters being something they could reveal in this way, they're like, yeah, that's not even noteworthy compared to what we're going to do. So I think there's some really exciting stuff here. And what I'm excited about in dungeons is, what will they feel like when this dungeon is 2 years old, 4 years old, 6 years old, when you're level 110 and you get this as your daily roulette that you're running for a Wondrous Tales or for Tomes or whatever, to level up and all. Will you be excited to see this dungeon when you're not in the mindset of, oh, what's going to happen next in the story? You're just running content, right? When you need to run something 2, 3, 4 times, when a relic step calls for a level 90 dungeon and you need to run a dungeon 16 times, what is that dungeon going to feel like as battle content? Remove the character models, remove the scene setting, remove the music, remove the lore. What is it going to feel like when that battle mechanic when you have to go through the motions over and over and over again to achieve a goal? And I think that content needs to be strong on its own, and then all that other stuff needs to be strong too. And so I think that stuff will be strong. This game has always done those things well. But what is exciting is that I think the dungeon content so far looks pretty good. I think, in my opinion, Shadowbringers, while it is likely one of the best expansions I will ever play in my entire life, the dungeon content wasn't really that spicy. It just wasn't. It was cool the first time through, but I wasn't like, man, I want to run that 10 more times today. I was like, yeah, I'll run it once or twice, and then I got other things to do. I want to go spend time in Eden. I want to go spend time running some of the, the Sorrows of Orlit trials. I want to go spend time in Delibram. There's been stuff that the battle content, in my opinion, has been something that I'm excited to do time and time again for the sake of battle content. Well after the realization of a big reveal in the story has worn off. Yeah, I know the line, right? I'm riding the elevator. Such devastation. I know that. What does the battle content feel like as battle content? And I'm excited that the dungeons feel this good.